And a Palestinian boy has died after Israeli forces shot him late Friday in Bethlehem. That's according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health. Atika Schubert reports on the story.
Zayed Ghunem had just finished dinner here at his parents' house when he stepped outside and started to walk to his grandparents' house, about a half a kilometer away from here. Now, according to his brother, the 14-year-old was not aware that there were clashes happening with Israeli soldiers near that area. We spoke to several eyewitnesses there. They tell us that he was chased into a nearby garage, and that's where he was shot, once in each leg, twice in the back, and once in the neck. That is according to Palestinian medics who arrived on the scene. Now, we asked the Israeli military for a response to explain what happened. They told us in a statement that Israeli soldiers were in the area conducting, quote, routine security activity when they came under attack with rocks and Molotov cocktails, quote, endangering their lives. And that is when Israeli soldiers responded with live fire, injuring one person. Now, according to that statement, Israeli soldiers also performed first aid. But according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, once Zayed Ghunem was brought to the hospital, he was pronounced dead. Unfortunately, this is the second minor in a week that has been shot and killed by Israeli forces. They are the latest victims in a surge of violence across Israel and the West Bank.